Hi, this is Paul at PATools, and in this video we're going to be looking at the Range Manager within the PATools Excel Toolbox. The Range Manager is a set of tools to help you work with ranges of data within a spreadsheet. So we've got here, for example, some sales data for 15 different regions across 20 different months. So the first thing is you can open the software either from here, Range Manager, or from PATools tab, Range Manager, or from the toolbar here with this symbol. So if I click on that and open it up, the first thing that you'll notice is that it gives you a whole range of information here about the selection. Now you may have noticed that I was only on one cell here, so when I click there it automatically selects that range of data. Now you may not want that, so you can toggle back to one cell or toggle back into the range. So what it tells us here is that we're on tab Sales and cells B3 to V19, which is 17 rows by 21 columns. It's 357 cells, 19 of them have got formulas. 320 of them have values, 320 are positive, 0 negatives and 0 with zeros in them. 37 cells have text, none have errors, none are blank, and therefore 357 are not blank. It gives us the total of those cells, and the total of positives and the total of negatives. It gives us the average, gives us the maximum and the minimum, and this is all just to 3 decimal places as the maximum. So some of this you will recognize. It tells you down here. For example, here it says the average of those cells is 691.77, etc., same as ours. It says there's 357 cells, same as our count here, and the sum is 221367, which is the same as our sum here. So ours gives you more information, but more importantly, if something in here has an error, say, let's force that one to be an error, equals 1 divided by 0, like that. So if I now go and select that range of cells, ours still gives us all this information, and it says that there's 2 error cells, obviously the one that we created and the total at the bottom, whereas Excel only says that 357 cells selected, so it's just given us this count here. So because there's an error in there, Excel itself doesn't give you all that other information. Ours does. So that's the information that you get here. Now you can toggle one cell or the range as we saw, and you can toggle the used range, which is all the cells on this tab that have been used, or back to the selection. Actually, it won't go back to the selection because it's forgotten what the selection was. But you can do it through the one cell in the range here. So that in a nutshell is what this part of it does here. Now all these tools that you can run are grouped over here into different tabs, and you've got a couple of options. Close this window after running and run faster. Run faster basically freezes the screen from updating and applies manual calculation, and that enables some of the tools to run much faster. And on small sets of data like this you won't really notice any difference, but you will if you run it on very large amounts of data. So let's have a look at this. If, for example, we wanted to just clear any cells that got errors in here, we can go into Clear, Cells with Errors. And we're checking formulas, values, or both. You can enter F or V or B. So we'll do both, and you'll see that that has now found that cell with an error in and cleared it, and therefore that formula now calculates. So if I just put that error back in there, equals 1 divided by 0, and the tool that ran on that range, if I do close window after running, and I can default that to on by setting it like that, and then if I do cells with errors, both, it's not only cleared it, but it's closed down our tool as well. And that's always defaulting to on now. I'm going to turn that off. So that is how that works, and I'm just going to put those back in there. So let's look at some more of the tools that are here. So if we do Range Manager, click on the right thing. Let's look at Send first. We're not going to have time in this video to look at every single tool that's in here, but we will look at one or two. So if I wanted to send that to a CSV file, now it may be that actually, I mean, you could save it as a CSV, but it might be that you actually just want, let's just put some data in there again. So it might be that we want to send just an extract of it, just 9 months worth of 10 regions, or something like that. So we could go into the Range Manager to a CSV file, and it's created a CSV file here effectively, and we could do a save as text file, call it data.txt. There's one I did earlier, and then if we rename that to data.csv, and that is now a CSV file that we could send out to somebody by attaching it to an email, or copy and paste it somewhere else. So that's a quick and easy way of creating a CSV file from just an extract of your data. The other thing you might want to do is send some of this to Microsoft Word as a table. So if we did that, for example, we can go Range Manager, send to Microsoft Word as a table. It says running, please wait. And opened in a new Word document. So if we close that down and go and find Microsoft Word, we will find it's created a new document here with a table of data in it. Now it hasn't brought the formatting across because Word works differently with formats, but if you select the table, go into Table Design, you can very quickly and easily choose a format for the table that you perhaps like. Something like that. And there it is. So we'll close that down. And excuse me, the frog in my throat, and that's sending to Microsoft Word as a table. So let's move on to clear now. So we've said clear cells with errors, we've already seen that in use. Let's just put in 1 or 2 zeros like this. So if we wanted to go through that table of data just like that and clear cells with zeros, you'll see 2 0 cells have been cleared, and those 2 cells are now empty. So a lot of this is fairly self-explanatory. Clear cells with numbers, with formulas, with text, with duplicates. So we don't know if there's any duplicates in there, but let's just run it anyway. And you saw some cells being emptied. 111 duplicate cells have been cleared. So that's cleared all duplicates, and these are all unique values. So I'm going to just quickly fill this with random numbers again, from 100 to 999, just to fill it up with values again. You can also just clear out cells with values greater than or less than. So if I go in here and do clear cells that are less than or less than and equal to 200, say, like that, do OK. Got that wrong. Less than or equal to, OK, and 200 is the value, do OK, and that has cleared out all cells that are less than or equal to 200. So we can see in here that the minimum is now 201 in this range. There's nothing less than 200 in there. So these are very powerful. Hyperlinks, you know how when you type in email addresses and so on, Excel kindly automatically adds a hyperlink in there, and it may be that you don't actually want those, so you can just go and clear all the hyperlinks straight away by clicking on here for any selected range of cells. So that's clear. So let's go to Insert now. Now we saw just now fill with random values, and you can choose a range, so 1 to 999, so that's filled all those cells with random values between 1 and 999. Useful for demos like this. Now let's just go and again clear cells with values less than 300 this time. So it's done that. So now we can go to Insert, fill empty cells with this text. Let's just put in empty. So if I do fill empty cells with this text, it doesn't make much sense in this instance, but every empty cell has been filled with the word empty. And if I go back here, and I now want to clear cells with text, so that's cleared all of those empties out again. So it might be that you actually want to just put 0 in them, so fill empty cells with 0 like that, and you can see it's done it over here. This next one's quite useful. It might be that you've got a set of data like this: 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, something like that. And basically I want those to have 1s in them, these to have 2s in them, these to have 3s in them. And obviously on a huge set of data, doing it manually could be quite laborious. So if you run this, copy or move into empty cells from adjacent. So I'm going to copy into the empty cells from left, right, above or below. So I'm going to do above, do OK. Text, value or formula, it doesn't matter, I'll do value. And you'll see that those now have automatically filled in with 1s, 2s, 3s. So that's very powerful as well. So now let's go over here and have a look at the next feature on insert. So we're going to insert this text now and put in the word local and a space. Insert this text. At 0 is the starter cell, E is the ender cell, and any other value is that position. So if I put 0, it's now gone and added local in front of all of those regions. So it now says local region 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So you can manipulate text very easily like this. So if I select that text and go back here and insert this text, and let's add space bracket 0 like that. Insert this text. This time I'm going to put in E for end of cell, and you'll see all of those have now got bracket 0 added on the end. So that basically is most of this. Adding a rounding formula to a cell. Might be that we've got these formulas here, equals sum of that. So if I go and select all of those and add a rounding formula to the cell to 2 decimal places, you'll see that each of those formulas now has got equals round than the formula that was in there to 2 decimal places. That can be very useful too for automatically adjusting all these formulas. Of course, in this instance you could have just manually done one and copied it all the way across, but that's not always so simple. Right, I think we've done everything in insert. Let's move on to numbers. So now we're going to come into here and we're going to go to all these numbers here, and we're going to adjust the values by dividing them. Let's do multiplying them by 1,000. So if we do that, you'll see all those numbers have been multiplied by 1,000. And we seem to be in manual calculation mode, so we'll just go and change that back so that these totals here adjust. And we will go and we can change these numbers back by dividing by 1,000. So that's adjusted all those values and divided by 1,000. We can flip the sign of numbers, so they've all become negative now. Flip them back to positive. You can just make all numbers positive, whether they were positive or negative. We can round all numbers. So if we had some numbers like this, 1.225564, like that, we just copy that down. I know it's the same for all of them, but we can round all numbers to how many decimal places? 2 decimal places. They've all been rounded. We can also force these numbers, let's say, to become text. So if we do numbers to text, then you'll see that now we've got 12 cells here, all 12 with text and none with values in them. And so you might be familiar with this little error thing that pops up sometimes where it says actually you've got a number stored as text. Do you want to convert it to a number? So you can convert it to a number, or you can go and use our software here, and guess what, on text you can do text to numbers, and they've all been changed now into numbers. So you can flip them between numbers to text and text to numbers using these two tools here. Right, we've done everything on numbers I think, so we move on to text, and let's go into here and look at some of these. So we've got let's just take these towns down here, and we're going to the range manager for these, and we're going to move the first word to the end. So brown town will become town brown, Denny town, so town will become the first word in all of those. So you can see that that's worked, and you can move the last word to the start, which one of these simple examples does the same thing, of course. We can change case to be U for uppercase, so they're now in uppercase. Change case to proper case, and so on. Text to numbers we saw just now. The next one, if we just go back to here, actually if we go to here and run that, show max and min lengths. Longest cell is B13, which is 19 characters long, and the shortest is B4, which is 18 characters long. Obviously B5, 6, 7, 8 and so on are all the same, so it shows the first one it finds in each of the longest and the shortest. So that can be quite handy. Now sometimes you'll find that you get data sent to you like this, brown town, and it's got a rogue space on the end, something like that, and you wouldn't notice it, you can't see it as a human being, but if you try and do a lookup on it or something like that and look up brown town, it doesn't work and you can't work out why, and you spend ages and eventually discover there's a rogue space on the end. And Denny town might have a rogue space in the middle like that. So if you go to our tool, this is very useful. Trim and or remove double spaces. Trim opening and trailing spaces will say yes. Remove double spaces will say yes. And it's gone through and it's reviewed 4 cells. One of them was trimmed, which was the brown town, and one had double spaces removed. So that can be very useful to make text look like you think it looks as a human being. Pad with spaces. If you're going to convert data into a fixed length, you may want to do pad with spaces here, and if I do 25 like that and do OK, now each of these has been padded out, so they don't look any different here except when I do this. But brown town has now been padded out with spaces to make the whole thing 25 characters long. So if I did this, for example, you would see it if we make that into a CSV file. Send to a CSV file, you can see that that's brown town with lots of spaces, and Denny town like that. So that's pad with spaces. Truncate cells, we may want to make them all just 20 characters long. So 4 cells were done out of those 8. So these are now 20 characters long, there's fewer spaces. Right, what next? Remove first word, remove last word. So if we remove the first word, we'll have just town and county left. And remove the last word, obviously. You can remove text up to or from a character. So if we remove text up to, let's say, the letter U, into the single character separator U. So county is going to have everything, it's going to lose the CO at the beginning there. This shouldn't be changed because there is no U in there. So if I do that, remove this character as well. Are we going to remove the U or not? We'll say no, not the U. Clear all text to the left or to the right of this character. So we'll do to the left. And as predicted, town has been left unchanged because there was no U there. County has lost the CO. Just got unti left. Similarly, you can remove text between 2 characters, and you can remove or retain specified characters from text. So if we go back to here, for example, we may want to remove or retain characters. So we might want to lose the 2 brackets like this. Of course, you could do search and replace, but you can do quite a lot more this way very quickly. So if I do that, do you want to remove these characters? Yes. So that's removed those opening and closing brackets. And it might be that actually we want to lose all numbers from these cells here. So 0 to 9, do OK, remove the characters, so they've all gone. So those are some handy tools for manipulating text. We'll now move on to formulas. Now we're going to have a quick look at subtotal formula, because you've probably all got spreadsheets a bit like this, where you've got a grand total here that basically adds those two cells together, and this cell here is a sum formula for that range, and this one's the same, except it's wrong. It should be that range there. So we'll do that. And that's all changed. Now that actually is not really the best way of building something like this. It works, but when it gets very long and complicated and you've got lots of different areas, there's a much cleaner way of doing it, and that is you should use subtotal formula. So this formula here should be converted to a subtotal. Let's just have a look and see what a subtotal formula is. If I'm going to actually come out of this and reload the clean version. Like this. So this is a sum formula here. So let's just move that lot over and just work with this for a moment. Now if I do something like this and I want to just filter out certain values, the first three there, and I've lost my total. Let's go back. Let's separate that as well. So the filter now doesn't look at that. So if I want to go and just filter into certain values like this, oh, what's going on somewhere here? It thinks that's linked. Or maybe it's turned it off and on again. So if I now go and filter out just certain values, like this, that clearly is not the total of those. So the way it should work is if you change this to a subtotal formula, and you just change the word sum to subtotal, and then in the beginning of the brackets you need to put in a function, and 9 is the one that you need to remember because that's sum. You can obviously have it working the same way with averages, counts, max and mins and so on. But if we do 9 like that, that now looks only at what you can see. So you can see that's the correct total for those. But as soon as I go and select all again, it corrects itself to 5720. So subtotal is the correct formula to use rather than sum if you're going to be applying filtering, and then you'll see the correct total. So if we come back here, the other great strength of subtotal is, so I'm just going to convert all of these using this, change sum to subtotal, and they've all been changed to subtotal 9s. And we'll go back and do the same here, change sum to subtotal. What happens now is, if this also becomes a subtotal formula, subtotal 9, I can subtotal all of this, and it basically doesn't add in these in error. You'll see that's still correct. But this really is the correct way of building it. If this was a sum formula, if this was back to sum, so if I just do auto sum in there, you'll see that's now incorrect because it's basically adding in that 3,417 total. Okay. Actually it doesn't. It looks like it used to. I think Excel have updated their formulas now so that it ignores that. So that's still quite helpful. It used to add in the 3,000 twice. Okay, a little embarrassment there. I've learnt something. You keep learning things by using Excel, don't you? But the subtotal is nonetheless the best way because you can add a whole range, and as long as these are subtotals, or it looks like now they can be sums, but I would still advise you use subtotals, then it won't add it in. And again, for very large set of data where you've got lots of different regions and so on, if you want to insert a region and so on, if you do it this way, then you know it'll always be correct at the bottom. Whereas the old way of doing it, by saying equals that plus that, then if you go and insert an area or another set of data, a new area like this, you have to remember to go and update this total at the bottom. But the subtotal will do it automatically for you. So subtotals can be useful and powerful either for filtering or for sets of data like this. So we've got a tool there that just converts sum formulas to subtotals for you very quickly and easily. Absolute and relative references. I don't know if you're used to using things like that. Let's go over here. So if we say equals that, and then we copy it down, as you know, Excel adjusts, and as you copy it across, it adjusts. But sometimes you don't want it to adjust when you copy across, so you fix equals B like that with a $sign. And now when you copy it down, it's fine. When you copy it across, it forces these to be still B2 and so on. So basically what happens with our tool here is you can very quickly change absolute and relevant and relative references by fixing both, fixing rows, fixing columns, or fixing none. So if I do 4 in there and do OK, those have all lost the $signs. And if I go back in and do it a different way, absolute relevant, and do 1 to fix both, which is the default, you'll see that they've all now got $B, $3, $B, $2, and so on. So that's quite handy, quick way of adjusting absolute relative references. Amend formulas. Where might you use that? If you go back here, and we wouldn't really want to do this, but if we wanted to change all these formulas here and amend them to have ×2 on the end, we amend the formulas, and it's going to be E at the end by default. So these formulas now are exactly as they were, but ×2. Obviously in this instance you wouldn't want to do that, it's not relevant, but sometimes you might want to just change formulas to be divided by 2 or something like that. So we've done formulas. Tables. So let's have a look now at tables. I've got a smaller selection of the data here, and I'm going to create a separate table over here. I'm going to just go and change one of these to 145 and change this one up here to 100. So you might have two sets of data like this from two different places and you want to compare them. So if you click on this and do compare two tables, now remember, first of all it's selected that table automatically. If I do compare two tables, it's looked for two tables, it's found them because they're obvious. If it doesn't select correctly, you can go and change the table and say actually it's only that bit there. And you can see here it's got all the same information for each of the two tables that we have seen before, but right hand click to change. Let's just go and make it into the whole table again as it had originally. So you can also look for differences. So I'm going to find differences in value and position, and you can see there are two cells with differences and it's highlighted them for us. I'm going to go and clear the highlighting, find differences in values, and this time it says there's 4 differences because it's counted each one as a difference. So that can be quite useful. You obviously don't have to highlight the cells and so on. If we go here and delete that, for example, move that up. So now we might want to line these two tables up. So we can go align two tables. Don't forget to not to do headers because otherwise it'll do those. So what we actually need to do is remove the headers. So this is going to be table 1, align two tables. Yep, continue. It's found them for us. And do we want to run on a copy worksheet or on the current one? I'm going to do no, so it runs on the current one. And what we'll find it's done is it's lined the two tables up for us. So there we are, it's put in the blank row there, and region 5 is now in line with region 5 over here. It has unfortunately had to sort in order to line them up, and so region 1 and region 10 is now showing at the top. So that's the only thing you need to be aware of. You might need to do something like that. because it basically uses this as a key and that as a key, and in order to line them up it has to sort them. So that's compare and align two tables. There's a lot of tools over here to do with sort of tables and things. So if we got region 1 to 10 like this, I'm just picking 1 or 2 of the tools at random to show you here. Reverse arrange your cells, and they've now been reversed 10 down to 1. You can copy a table into one column. So let's just get rid of this. Let's get rid of this and get rid of that. So we've got a table of data here. We might want that displayed in one column. So we're going to the Range Manager and copy a table into one column, and it's inserted a column to the left and copied that whole table into there. So that table of data now exists down there as one column of data. And similarly, we can put it back if we wanted to. Go to Range Manager, create a table from one column like this. It warned you it might be adjacent. Now we've got 10 regions and the total, so it's going to be on every 11. On every 11 cells, it basically moves it up into another table and into another column, sorry. And so now that's put it back into a table. So you may need to, if I'm doing this a bit fast, you may need to experiment with it yourself, but it does tell you what it does up, down at the bottom when you hover the mouse. Copy a table into 4 columns. That can be very useful for VLOOKUP. If we just run that, that has, the tables are still over here. It's inserted a new sheet called sheet 1, and it's now put that data in like this. So you can now, because with VLOOKUP you can't look in 2 dimensions, it's very complicated. So if I wanted to say region 3 for month 2 with a VLOOKUP formula, that's very difficult to do on here. XLOOKUP, the new formula that Excel has introduced, does make that a bit better, but nonetheless it might still be handy to just be able to look up region 3 month 1 and using your old VLOOKUP or something like that. So there's the data displayed like that. I'm going to leave you to experiment with the rest. Cells. That's quite a fun tool here. If we select just the numbers here and we were doing the lottery, we can select one cell. Where are we? Pick one cell at random, and it just picks one at random for you. So if you run an office lottery or something like that, you can use that. Check for missing numbers. That can be quite handy. 1, 2, 4, 9, 12, 13, 18. So we've got a set of data here and we want to find which ones are missing. So we can go check for missing numbers. What's the normal interval between numbers? It's 1 in this case. And are we going to ignore any large gaps? So if there's a new sequence 100 ahead or something, or 1000 ahead, we could ignore that. So it wouldn't tell us there's loads and loads of missing numbers. And if we do OK, the missing numbers are 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17. And that's been put onto the clipboard for us as well. So if we wanted to, we could go and get that. We could either just paste it in here. There it is, Control V. Or we could go to the PATools text editor, paste from the clipboard, and we could change the commas to be tabs, replace all, copy to clipboard and close. And now if I paste it in here, it's put the numbers each into a new cell. So that can be quite handy to find which numbers are missing from here, especially if that's a very long set of data. What else have we got? Check for missing numbers. Again, I'm going to let you play with the others. And worksheets. 1 or 2 useful tools here. Add an index of worksheets. Let's look at this first. If I just click on that, it's basically created a new tab at the beginning here called Contents with hyperlinked reference to each of the other tabs. So if I click on Full Sales, it goes straight into Full Sales. Go back to Contents, click on Text Editor, and it goes straight into the Text Editor tab. So that can be quite useful. And if this changes a lot, you can easily just go and delete that worksheet. Delete permanently, and you can just run it again. Add an index of worksheets. It might be that we want to rename these worksheets to January, February, March, April, May, and so on. So if I go now and just add an index of worksheets like that, I'm going to now just select all those cells and remove the hyperlinks, which was text. No, sorry, it was clear hyperlinks. So the hyperlinks have now gone from each of those. And it might be that I wanted them named January, and so on, like that. So now if I select these, the tool will look in the cells to the right to rename them. So worksheets, rename worksheets, and you'll see that they've all been renamed January, February, March, April, May, June, July, just like that. So that is pretty much the most of the tools. As I say, I'm not going to show you them all because it's a long enough video already. We hope you find it useful and powerful. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the software.